Deep in the heart of an unassuming stone quarry, hidden beneath layers of dust and time, lies a mystery that has puzzled scholars for generations. The walls here aren't just rough-hewn rock. They're covered in strange, intricate symbols, a silent language waiting to be heard. This isn't just any ancient graffiti. It's the only known evidence of a lost alphabet, a script so rare that its very existence was nearly erased from history. Picture standing there, running your fingers over those carvings, feeling the weight of centuries pressing against your fingertips. Who created these marks? What stories do they tell? And why did this alphabet vanish, leaving only these faint echoes behind? This quarry isn't just a relic, it's a portal, a doorway to a civilization we barely understand, a people whose voices were silenced by time. Archaeologists have scoured these walls, linguists have pored over every curve and line, yet the full meaning of these symbols remains tantalizingly out of reach. What we do know is this: these carvings are unlike anything else ever discovered. They don't match known ancient scripts, and they defy easy translation. Some believe they could rewrite our understanding of regional history, revealing connections between cultures we never knew existed. Others think they might hold secret religious texts, royal decrees, or even forgotten myths waiting to be resurrected. But here's what makes this story even more gripping. This quarry isn't just a static museum piece. It's alive with possibility. Every year, new technology brings us closer to cracking the code. Infrared scans, AI analysis, and dedicated teams of researchers are piecing together the puzzle, one symbol at a time. And that's where you come in. Because this isn't just a story for experts, it's a story for anyone who's ever wondered about the lost chapters of human history. So join me as we step into the quarry, trace the lines of this forgotten alphabet, and uncover the secrets of a civilization that dared to carve its voice into stone. The past is speaking. Are you ready to listen? The story of this forgotten alphabet begins not with a team of archaeologists, but with a single curious observer, a farmer tending his goats near the quarry's edge. One afternoon, as sunlight slanted across the rocks, he noticed grooves too precise, too orderly to be natural wear. At first, locals shrugged it off as erosion or old quarry marks, but something about those shapes nagged at him. Months later, he returned with a scholar from a nearby village who took one look and froze. Those weren't random scratches. They formed patterns, repeating sequences, a system. Word spread, and soon researchers arrived with brushes and cameras, their initial skepticism crumbling as they documented symbol after symbol, each one deliberately carved with tools no one could yet identify. Carbon dating revealed the shocking truth. These markings were made over 3,000 years ago, in an era when this region was believed to be pre-literate. Geological layers confirmed the carvings weren't added later. They belonged to the quarry's active period. Suddenly, a site once dismissed as a simple source of building stone became a cipher waiting to be solved. The symbols didn't match hieroglyphs, cuneiform, or any known script from neighboring cultures. They stood alone, a linguistic island in the vast sea of history. Some experts theorized they were accounting marks, tracking stone shipments. Others saw sacred glyphs, perhaps prayers to protect the workers. But the most compelling detail: the quarry's layout suggests the carvers positioned certain symbols where they'd catch the light at solstice dawn, hinting at a deeper, possibly ceremonial purpose. What's haunting is how close we came to losing this discovery forever. The quarry was nearly demolished in the 1980s for road construction. Had the farmer not paused that day, had the scholar not followed up, these whispers from the past would have been ground into gravel. Now every chip of stone holds potential clues. Even the rubble piles are being sifted, revealing fragments of tools and pottery that might link the symbols to their creators. This isn't just about deciphering an alphabet, it's about giving voice to a people who left no other trace. As one linguist put it, writing isn't just communication, it's a shout across time. And in this quiet quarry, someone was determined to be heard. The quarry's remote location, tucked between jagged hills and miles from any known ancient settlement, might be the very reason these carvings survived when so much else was lost. Surrounded by rugged terrain that even today requires a full day's hike to reach, this place was never easy to access. The builders likely chose this spot not just for its stone, but for its seclusion, perhaps to protect their work or because the site held deeper significance. The rock itself tells a story, a dense, fine-grained sandstone that's surprisingly soft when first quarried but hardens with exposure to air. That detail alone changes everything. It means the symbols could have been carved quickly, with simple bronze or even stone tools, before the surface solidified into permanence. Geologists studying the quarry's layers have uncovered something startling. The walls bearing the inscriptions show signs of deliberate smoothing, as if the carvers prepared the surface like a canvas before making their marks. Even more intriguing, mineral deposits in the grooves suggest the carvings were once filled with pigment, possibly ochre or charcoal, making them stand out vividly against the stone. Imagine these walls 3,000 years ago, not as muted scratches but as bold, dark lines shouting from the rock. The quarry wasn't just a workplace. It may have been a sacred space, a library, or even a boundary marker for a civilization we've yet to name. Time has played tricks here. Sections of the quarry collapsed long ago, burying some carvings while exposing others. Erosion has softened edges, but in sheltered crevices, symbols remain crisp as the day they were made. One slab, half buried in rubble, shows a sequence interrupted mid-stroke, as if the carver was forced to abandon their work. Was it an attack, a sudden storm? Or something more mundane, like a shift in labor? Every geological clue adds another layer to the mystery. The stone's composition even hints at trade networks. Trace minerals in the sandstone match deposits found nearly 100 miles away, suggesting these people moved materials and ideas across distances we never thought possible for their era. What's astonishing is how the environment conspired to both hide and preserve these messages. Winter frosts flaked away loose stone, gradually revealing deeper layers. Summer winds scoured dust from grooves, keeping them legible across centuries. Even the quarry's angle matters. The most intricate carvings face southeast, shielded from harsh afternoon sun but catching the gentle morning light, as if designed for readability. This wasn't random graffiti. Every detail, from the stone's quality to the symbol's placement, speaks of intention. And now, as researchers map mineral veins and weathering patterns, they're not just studying a dead alphabet, they're decoding the very pulse of a lost world. When the first grainy photographs of the quarry carvings reached university laboratories and research institutions, the academic world split into two camps. On one side, seasoned archaeologists squinted at the images, dismissing the markings as nothing more than tool scars or natural fissures in the stone. After all, quarries are full of random cuts. Why should these be any different? But linguists and epigraphers saw something else entirely. The way certain shapes repeated at regular intervals, the deliberate spacing between clusters, these weren't accidents. One scholar described it as stumbling upon footprints in the desert and realizing they form a path, not just scattered steps. The breakthrough came when a team from the University of Barcelona superimposed early sketches of the carvings onto a grid, revealing something extraordinary. Symbols that appeared random at first glance actually followed a mathematical rhythm, with certain characters appearing more frequently, just like vowels in a spoken language. Even more telling, some marks clustered near what seemed to be quarry workstations, while others appeared in isolated alcoves, as if serving different purposes. One researcher compared it to finding both shopping lists and love letters in the same archaeological layer, proof that this script wasn't monolithic. It had range, nuance, perhaps even dialects, yet for every moment of revelation there were setbacks. Early attempts at translation hit a wall when no known language family matched the symbol structure. Computers analyzing stroke patterns kept drawing blanks. One frustrated graduate student spent months trying to match the carvings to Linear A, only to realize the Quarry script predated it by centuries. Then came the eureka moment. A visiting geologist noticed that some symbols resembled weathering patterns found only in this specific type of sandstone. Suddenly, the possibility emerged that the carvers didn't just use the stone, they drew inspiration from it, letting the rock's natural veins and fractures guide their alphabet shapes. What sealed the case for authenticity was a discovery made almost by accident. While cleaning a rarely photographed section of the quarry wall, a conservator uncovered a single, unmistakable sequence, a grouping of symbols repeated 3 times in identical order, separated by what could only be a divider mark. It was the smoking gun, the equivalent of finding exit signs above every door in an ancient building. Here was proof of standardization, of a system meant to be understood. As one professor later wrote, nature doesn't repeat itself with such precision. Only human hands, human minds, create patterns this intentional. The debates that followed reshaped entire careers. Traditionalists who dismissed the carvings as quarry tallies now faced evidence of a full-fledged writing system. Young researchers flocked to the site, armed with new theories about nomadic scribes or lost trade routes that might explain how such an advanced script appeared in isolation. And beneath it all thrummed a thrilling question. If this alphabet had no relatives, no descendants, what else might be waiting in the unexcavated corners of history? Every stroke on those walls was a hand reaching across millennia, daring us to listen. Imagine holding 2 ancient texts side by side, one covered in familiar hieroglyphs, the other etched with the quarry's mysterious symbols, and realizing they share absolutely no common ground. That's precisely the shock linguists faced when they began comparing this lost alphabet to every known script from the ancient world. Egyptian hieroglyphs with their animal-headed gods. No connection, the angular cuneiform of Mesopotamia, not even close. Even Linear B, the earliest form of Greek, showed no resemblance. These quarry carvings stood apart, a linguistic rebel without a clear ancestor or descendant. What makes this script so baffling isn't just its uniqueness, but its sophistication. Some symbols appear in tight clusters, like logograms representing whole words or concepts, while others repeat in sequences that suggest phonetic sounds, almost like an alphabet. The directional flow adds another layer of intrigue, unlike Egyptian hieroglyphs that could be read left to right or right to left. These carvings maintain a consistent orientation, as if the writers adhered to strict rules. One researcher described it as finding a symphony where you expected folk songs. The complexity hints at a culture with advanced communication needs, possibly for trade, governance, or sacred text. Then there's the puzzle of recurrence. Certain symbols pop up near what appear to be workspaces, like tally marks tracking stone blocks. Others, more elaborate, crown isolated alcoves, perhaps names of artisans or prayers to quarried deities. But the real head-scratcher, a handful of rare characters appear only once or twice in the entire site, like ghost notes in a melody. Were they punctuation? Royal seals or mistakes smoothed over by time, without a bilingual inscription, a Rosetta Stone for this script, every theory remains suspended between breakthrough and dead end. The absence of translation keys hasn't stopped bold attempts to crack the code. One team noticed that symbol frequency mirrors patterns in modern alphabets, where vowels outnumber rare consonants. Another group used AI to hunt for grammatical structures, uncovering possible verb-noun arrangements. But the most tantalizing clue came from an unexpected source, the stone itself. Those recurring wavy lines, they match natural fissures in the quarry walls, suggesting the carvers might have incorporated the rock's own language into their script. It's as if they were collaborating with the earth to create something entirely new. Debate rages over whether this constitutes true writing or proto-writing, a system halfway between pictures and alphabet. The sheer variety of symbols leans toward a full language, but until someone deciphers even a single word, the quarry's walls keep their secrets. What's undeniable is the intentionality behind every stroke. These weren't doodles or accidents, they were meant to endure, and as technology like three-dimensional scanning and machine learning joins the effort, we're closer than ever to hearing the voices trapped in that stone. The irony, the very isolation that preserved these carvings, their lack of kinship to other scripts, might be the key to understanding a civilization that dared to write its own rules. Theories about who carved this enigmatic alphabet into the quarry walls are as varied as the symbols themselves. One prevailing idea points to a nomadic group that passed through the region, a people without permanent settlements, leaving few traces beyond these markings. Think of them as ancient travelers who needed a writing system portable enough to carry across mountains and deserts, etching their stories into stone wherever they stopped to rest. Unlike settled cultures that built libraries, these wanderers may have used the quarry as their archive, turning rock faces into pages of a scattered manuscript. Supporting this theory are faint tool marks resembling those found along ancient trade routes, hinting at connections between distant communities. Another compelling hypothesis suggests the script belonged to a marginalized population, perhaps laborers or artisans whose voices were suppressed by ruling powers. History is littered with examples of dominant cultures erasing subordinate languages, but here the quarry became an act of quiet rebellion. The carvings cluster in hidden corners and sheltered overhangs, as if deliberately placed where only initiates would find them. Some symbols even appear to mimic tools of the stone trade: chisels, mallets, wedges transformed into letters by hands that knew their weight and purpose. Could this have been a way for workers to claim ownership over their craft, leaving behind a language as enduring as the stone they cut? Then there's the secret code theory. Certain sequences repeat near what might have been storage chambers or entry points, like warnings or instructions for those in the know. One scholar noticed that the spacing between symbols corresponds to natural fissures in the rock, almost as if the carvers used geology as part of their cipher. It brings to mind medieval stonemasons' guilds, where marks identified craftsmen or concealed trade secrets. But if this was a code, what was it protecting? Sacred knowledge, routes to valuable mineral deposits. The absence of any obvious key only deepens the intrigue. Religious interpretations abound too. A team from Cairo University highlighted how the most intricate carvings align with solstice sunlight, suggesting celestial rituals. Others see parallels in indigenous oral traditions from the region's stories of a sky language taught by ancestral spirits. One elder from a nearby village recounted legends of a people who wrote with the earth itself, though whether this refers to the quarry carvings remains unproven. What's striking is how these theories aren't mutually exclusive. The script could have served multiple purposes, sacred to priests, practical to merchants, and deeply personal to those who carved it. The boldest theory comes from a group of archaeologists who argue the alphabet wasn't invented here at all, that it arrived fully formed from somewhere else. They point to a single symbol resembling a ship, along with mineral analysis showing traces of foreign copper in the quarry dust. Could this script have been imported by seafarers or traders, then adapted by local workers? It's a tantalizing thought, especially given evidence of Bronze Age maritime networks stretching far beyond what textbooks once claimed. Yet if the alphabet was borrowed, why does it share no roots with other known writing systems? The mystery only thickens. What unites all these theories is the quarry itself, not just as a canvas, but as an active participant in the story. The stone's texture influenced the script's curves. Its durability preserved messages meant to outlast empires. Whether the carvers were rebels, mystics, or travelers, they chose a medium as eternal as their intentions. And as researchers now turn to soil samples and pollen analysis to reconstruct the environment of 3,000 years ago, we're reminded that every mark on those walls is part of a larger conversation, one between human hands and the earth that bore them. Every mark on those quarry walls is more than a symbol, it's a fingerprint of a civilization's mind. If we could read this alphabet, we wouldn't just translate words, we'd step into a 3,000-year-old conversation. Imagine uncovering laws etched into stone, revealing how justice was served, or prayers whispered to forgotten gods, telling us what people feared and revered. Even mundane records, lists of supplies, names of workers, would crack open a window onto daily life in a world otherwise lost to time. Writing isn't just about communication, it's the skeleton of culture, holding up everything from trade to tradition. The quarry's remote location adds another layer of intrigue. Most ancient scripts we've deciphered, Egyptian hieroglyphs, Mesopotamian cuneiform, come from powerful urban centers. But this alphabet blooms in isolation, like a single tree in a desert. That alone challenges assumptions about where and how writing developed. Could it belong to a pastoral society that valued mobility over monuments? A trading network that needed records but left no cities? The very existence of this script suggests literacy might have flourished in places we've barely thought to look. Then there's the tantalizing possibility of connections. Symbols resembling waves and mountains hint at a people deeply tied to their landscape, while recurring geometric patterns echo designs found on pottery fragments hundreds of miles away. No direct links have been proven yet, but the stylistic echoes are impossible to ignore. Some researchers speculate this could be the missing piece in a puzzle spanning continents, evidence of a Bronze Age lingua franca used by traders moving between empires. Others see something more intimate, a local dialect, perhaps even a secret script developed to shield knowledge from outsiders. What makes this discovery so electrifying is its potential to rewrite not just history, but our understanding of human ingenuity. Most ancient writing systems evolved slowly, borrowing from neighbors over centuries. But this alphabet appears fully formed, as if its creators leaped straight from oral tradition to sophisticated script. Was it the work of a single visionary, a collective effort by quarry workers who needed to track shipments? However it began, the system endured long enough to cover these walls, suggesting it was widely understood, at least for a time. The true cultural weight of these carvings lies in their silence. Unlike Egyptian tombs or Roman tablets, there's no king's name to anchor them in time, no battle chronicle to explain their context. Just quiet, stubborn marks saying, "We were here," and that might be their greatest gift. Without the bias of rulers' boasts or priests' decrees, we're left with raw, unfiltered humanity. These symbols could belong to anyone: the stonecutter tallying his labor, the mother carving her child's name, the poet writing verses only the wind would hear. In their anonymity, they speak for the ordinary voices history so often forgets. Now, as scholars race to decode the script, every potential breakthrough carries double meaning. A translated word isn't just a linguistic victory, it's a thread pulled from the fabric of a vanished world. Will we find accounts of droughts or wars that reshaped the region? Hymns to deities whose names have faded from memory, or perhaps something simpler, instructions for building a home or the price of a loaf of bread. The Quarry's greatest secret isn't just what its carvers wrote, but why they chose this lonely, lasting canvas. In answering that, we might finally hear the heartbeat of a people who turned stone into story. The first attempts to decipher the Quarry's cryptic symbols began with methods straight out of a detective's playbook. Early researchers, armed with nothing more than pencils and graph paper, meticulously catalogued each symbol's frequency, counting how often a wavy line appeared versus a cluster of dots, or how certain shapes tended to follow others. One linguist spent months tracking symbol pairs, convinced they'd uncover grammatical rules like subject-verb agreements in modern languages. At first, patterns emerged. A hooked character resembling a sickle often preceded groups of vertical strokes, while spiral motifs clustered near what might have been workspaces. Hope flared. Could these be prefixes denoting quantities, or maybe markers for different types of stone? Then came the dead ends. The same symbol that seemed to act as a divider in one context appeared as part of a word in another. Attempts to match frequency distributions to known ancient languages fell flat. One team from Oxford tried applying the same statistical models used to crack Linear B, only to hit a wall when the Quarry script defied every expected linguistic ratio. Even the spacing between symbols proved deceptive. What looked like deliberate gaps for readability in some areas appeared cramped and overlapping elsewhere, as if the carvers adapted their technique to the rock's contours rather than strict rules. Undeterred, scholars pivoted to new approaches. A Spanish epigrapher noticed that certain symbols resembled tools found at the site: chisels, mallets, even the Quarry's own stepped ledges. Perhaps this was a purely pictorial system where each mark represented an object rather than a sound. For a thrilling few weeks, the theory held. Then excavators uncovered a slab where the same tool symbols appeared in sequences too long to be simple inventories. Another dead end. Meanwhile, astronomers mapped symbols against star charts, searching for celestial alignments, while mathematicians hunted for numerical sequences that might reveal accounts or calendars. The most tantalizing near breakthrough came when a young researcher cross-referenced the symbols with weather patterns. She hypothesized that certain wavy lines represented droughts, while clustered dots might indicate prosperous years. The theory gained traction when symbols matching her proposed drought marks appeared near layers of sediment showing ancient dry spells. But just as the academic world took notice, a geological survey revealed those same symbols appeared in areas of the Quarry untouched by weather-related wear. Back to square one, what these efforts revealed wasn't failure but the script's stubborn complexity. Unlike Egyptian hieroglyphs with their Rosetta Stone or Mayan glyphs tied to living languages, this alphabet refused to fit known frameworks. Some symbols behaved like letters, others like whole words, with no clear punctuation or directional cues. The very stubbornness that frustrated researchers also deepened the mystery. If this wasn't a straightforward inventory or celestial map, what level of sophistication were they dealing with? Each wrong turn added weight to a growing realization. This wasn't just writing. It was a mirror held up to an entire worldview, one that organized knowledge in ways modern minds struggle to reconstruct. Now, as databases catalog every stroke and machine learning models test thousands of permutations per second, those early efforts seem almost quaint. Yet they laid crucial groundwork. Every discarded theory narrowed the possibilities. Every statistical dead end illuminated the script's unique architecture. What began as a hunt for translation became something richer, an education in humility. The Quarry's walls, it seems, demand more than decryption. They require us to listen on their terms. And somewhere in the echoes between those failed attempts and persistent questions, the first whispers of understanding may finally be stirring. Modern technology has become the torchbearer in this quest to decode the Quarry's silent language. Where human eyes see only weathered lines and curves, high-resolution three-dimensional scanners capture every microscopic groove and ridge, transforming the carvings into digital landscapes. These scans don't just preserve the symbols, they amplify them, revealing tool marks so precise they hint at the angle of the chisel and the pressure of the carver's hand. One team even discovered faint guidelines etched beneath the finished symbols, like pencil drafts on stone, proving these weren't impulsive scratches but planned, deliberate acts of writing. Artificial intelligence has entered the fray, not as a replacement for human intuition, but as a partner in pattern recognition. Machine learning algorithms trained on thousands of ancient scripts now sift through the Quarry's symbols, searching for hidden rhythms. They've spotted something fascinating. Certain clusters repeat at intervals that match poetic meter in known oral traditions, suggesting these carvings might encode songs or chants. Other models have flagged symbols that shift slightly over time, like evolving handwriting, offering clues about how long the Quarry remained in use. One algorithm even detected a symbol hidden beneath layers of mineral deposits, a character completely missed by decades of human study, waiting silently until technology gave it a voice. Then there's spectral imaging, a technique that peels back time like layers of an onion. By photographing the walls under different light wavelengths, researchers have uncovered symbols long faded to the naked eye. In one startling case, ultraviolet light revealed an entire column of text that had been deliberately smoothed over, as if someone tried to erase it. The implications are chilling. Was this censorship, a mistake corrected, or something more personal, like a name chiseled away in grief? The technology doesn't just show us what's there, it whispers about the hands that added, altered, or attempted to destroy. The real breakthrough may come from an unexpected collaboration between geologists and computer scientists. By analyzing the Quarry's mineral composition alongside symbol depth and weathering patterns, they've begun estimating when each section was carved. Early results suggest the script evolved over centuries, with older symbols showing simpler forms that grew more elaborate over time. It's like watching a language mature before your eyes, adapting to new needs and ideas. One hypothesis gaining traction is that the alphabet wasn't static but living, changing as its speakers encountered new cultures or technologies. Yet for all these advancements, the Quarry guards its secrets jealously. AI can map patterns, but meaning remains elusive without cultural context. A machine might identify a symbol as important based on repetition, but only human insight can guess whether it represents a god, a king, or something as mundane as a measurement. That's where the real magic happens, at the intersection of silicon and intuition. As one researcher put it, technology gives us the letters, but we still have to write the story. And what a story it's shaping up to be. Every scan, every algorithm, every pixelated enhancement brings us closer to the moment when those silent symbols finally speak. Among the hundreds of symbols carved into the Quarry walls, a select few stand out not just for their frequency, but for the tantalizing clues they offer about this lost alphabet's purpose. Take the most recurring symbol, a vertical stroke topped with a crescent like a staff bearing a tiny moon. Some researchers argue it represents a deity, given its prominence near what might have been ritual spaces. Others point to its resemblance to ancient shepherd's crooks, suggesting it could mark ownership or tally livestock. But here's where it gets fascinating. In one secluded alcove, this symbol appears beside a cluster of dots arranged in a pattern mirroring a constellation visible during the region's harvest season. Could it be both sacred and practical, a prayer for fertile flocks and a celestial calendar? Then there's the wave and peak motif, a series of undulating lines capped with triangular points. At first glance, it evokes mountains and rivers, a map of the surrounding landscape. But look closer, and you'll notice these symbols clustered near quarry workstations where stone was split along natural fissures. Geological surveys reveal the waves match the rock's grain, while the peaks align with optimal strike points for splitting slabs. This isn't just artistry, it might be technical instruction, a stonemason's guide etched into the very material it describes. The duality is striking, a symbol that could serve as both poetry and manual, blending reverence for the land with intimate knowledge of its use. One of the most debated characters resembles a branching tree, its roots twisting into a spiral. Found predominantly near water collection areas of the quarry, some linguists propose it symbolizes growth or renewal. Yet recent excavations turned up pottery fragments bearing a similar design, always positioned at the vessel's base, as if marking contents. This raises another possibility. The tree could denote measurement units, perhaps volumes of grain or water. The same symbol might hold spiritual meaning in one context and bureaucratic function in another, a reminder that ancient writing often straddled the mundane and the divine. Perhaps the most enigmatic is the hand and chisel glyph, a crude outline of a palm gripping a tool. Initially dismissed as a quarry worker's signature, its meaning expanded when researchers noticed it appearing exclusively near the deepest, most skill-intensive cuts. Even more telling, the angle of the chisel changes subtly across the site, matching variations in the stone's hardness. This isn't just a maker's mark, it could be a record of technique, a way to pass down knowledge through generations. Imagine an apprentice learning to read not just words, but the weight and wrist motion behind each stroke. The real mystery lies in how these symbols interact. Some appear isolated, like bold declarations, while others weave into chains that defy modern grammatical categories. A sequence near the quarry's entrance repeats 3 symbols in alternating order: the crook, the tree, and a zigzag resembling lightning. Is this a protective invocation, a list of trade goods, or something more narrative like a hymn or origin story? Without a key, we're left with fragments of a conversation, but the very repetition suggests rules, a syntax waiting to be cracked. What's remarkable is how these symbols refuse to fit neatly into modern categories. They blur the line between writing and drawing, between prayer and practicality. A single character might encode a tool's function, a worker's identity, and a blessing for safe labor. That fluidity could be the script's greatest strength and our biggest hurdle. How do you decipher a language where one curve can be a letter, a number, and a prayer all at once? As technology peels back layers of meaning, each symbol becomes less a riddle to solve and more a window into a world where every mark carried the weight of survival, belief, and memory. The tool marks crisscrossing the quarry walls tell their own silent story, one that doesn't rely on deciphering symbols to understand. Every chip, every groove holds forensic evidence about the hands that worked here. Unlike the deliberate carvings of the alphabet, these incidental scars reveal the gritty reality of labor. The first clue lies in the depth and angle of the cuts. Shallow, uneven striations suggest stone or bone tools, while deeper, cleaner lines hint at metal, likely bronze, given the era. But here's the twist: some markings show a hybrid approach. Rough initial cuts made with stone chisels, followed by meticulous finishing with metal, as if the workers adapted their techniques based on the stone's hardness or the task's importance. Examine the quarry's eastern face, and you'll find something extraordinary: tool marks that curve slightly at the edges, a signature of left-handed artisans. This small detail shatters assumptions about standardized labor. It suggests individual workers left their literal mark, carving not just stone but their identities into the walls. Even more telling are the mistakes, areas where a chisel slipped, only for the worker to adjust their grip and continue. These aren't the errors of amateurs but of skilled craftsmen pushing their materials to the limit. The stone here is deceptively tricky, soft when first exposed but hardening over time, demanding intimate knowledge of its behavior. Then there's the matter of scale. In some sections, tool marks cluster tightly, following precise geometric patterns, evidence of coordinated team efforts, possibly supervised by master carvers. Elsewhere, isolated alcoves show solitary work, with strokes varying wildly in pressure and spacing. One theory posits that the quarry doubled as a training ground, where apprentices honed their skills under watchful eyes. The most compelling evidence: a series of unfinished carvings near the quarry's base, their symbols abruptly abandoned mid-stroke. The tool marks here are frantic, deeper at one end, as if the worker rushed or was interrupted. Was it an accident, an attack, or simply the end of a shift frozen in stone? The tools themselves haven't survived, but their ghosts linger in the rock. Microscopic residue analyzers have detected traces of copper in the finest carvings, confirming bronze tools were used for detailed work. But in the quarry's oldest sections, researchers found flecks of flint embedded in the stone, proof that earlier generations relied on stone implements. This technological evolution mirrors the script's development, suggesting a society transitioning between eras. The real revelation came when a team compared tool marks under ultraviolet light. Hidden beneath centuries of patina, they discovered faint scoring lines, guidelines etched with something sharp and precise, possibly obsidian. These weren't rough drafts but blueprints, indicating the carvers planned each symbol before committing it to stone. What emerges is a portrait of resourcefulness. These builders didn't just work the stone, they listened to it. They knew which sections would take fine detail and which would crumble, when to use brute force and when to employ patient, repetitive strokes. The variations in tool marks across the site suggest seasonal work, perhaps crews arriving during dry periods when the stone was easiest to cut. And always, there's the interplay between practicality and artistry. Even functional cuts meant to split slabs have a rhythmic quality, as if the act of quarrying was itself a form of reverence. The most haunting marks aren't on the walls at all, but on the quarry floor. Scattered among the rubble are smooth, bowl-shaped depressions, places where generations of workers sharpened their tools. Over centuries, countless blades ground against the rock, wearing it down incrementally. These unassuming hollows might hold the quarry's deepest truth, that writing here wasn't reserved for elites or scribes. It belonged to the hands that shaped the stone, to people who understood that language, like rock, could be both monument and tool. Every strike of their chisels was a dialogue with the earth, with each other, and with a future they'd never see. Determining the age of these mysterious carvings isn't as simple as reading a date stamped in stone. Scientists have had to piece together clues like detectives reconstructing a centuries-old crime scene. Take radiocarbon dating, for instance, a method that typically relies on organic material like charcoal or bone. Here's the catch: the quarry walls themselves are inorganic sandstone, but researchers got creative. They scraped tiny residues from the deepest grooves, finding traces of plant fibers and animal fats likely left by the tools used to carve the symbols. These organic fragments became time capsules, with radiocarbon results pointing to a window between 3,200 and 3,600 years ago. That's older than some of Homer's epics, yet the range is frustratingly wide enough to span entire dynasties. Then there's stratigraphy, the art of reading geological layers like pages in a book. The quarry's walls reveal distinct bands of sedimentation, each marking a different era of use. Symbols carved into lower layers must predate those higher up, right? Not so fast. Quarries are active landscapes workers often cut backward into older stone, scrambling the chronological sequence. One team discovered symbols from supposedly younger layers overlapping fractures in older rock, suggesting the carvers revisited and expanded their work over generations. It's like finding a modern graffiti tag painted beneath a medieval fresco. The timeline defies logic until you account for human unpredictability. Weathering patterns add another layer to the puzzle. By measuring how deeply erosion has softened the edges of each symbol, geologists can estimate exposure time. But this method assumes consistent environmental conditions, a dangerous gamble in a region prone to shifting climates. A symbol weathered by centuries of harsh desert winds might appear older than one sheltered under an overhang, even if both were carved the same year. One particularly contentious inscription shows minimal weathering yet sits adjacent to heavily worn symbols. Is it a later addition, or was it simply protected by a now vanished overhang? The debate rages on. The most heated disagreements stem from contradictory evidence. Radiocarbon dates from one section suggest the carvings began around 1200 BCE, while tool mark analyses point to techniques common 800 years later. Some scholars argue this discrepancy proves the quarry was used intermittently over millennia. Others propose a radical alternative, that the alphabet wasn't invented here but was imported by a later culture that repurposed the site. The implications are staggering. If the older dates hold, this script predates the Phoenician alphabet by centuries, challenging the very origins of written communication. If the younger timeline wins out, it suggests an isolated pocket of literacy thriving long after neighboring regions adopted foreign writing systems. Complicating matters further are the pigments. Traces of ochre and charcoal found in some grooves were initially dismissed as later additions, until microscopic analysis revealed they were applied when the carvings were fresh. Dating these pigments pushed some symbols even further back, aligning with the oldest radiocarbon samples. But here's the twist: the same pigments appear in much younger layers too, indicating the tradition of coloring the symbols persisted for generations. Was this a sacred practice, a practical method to enhance visibility, or proof that the alphabet's meaning evolved over time? The dating debate isn't just academic quibbling. It reshapes how we interpret every symbol. A 3,000-year-old script might belong to a Bronze Age trading network, while a 2,000-year-old version could reflect resistance to Roman or Greek influence. Each timeline paints a different portrait of the carvers, pioneering innovators in one scenario, cultural holdouts in another. As one archaeologist put it, dating this script isn't about assigning numbers to rock. It's about deciding which lost civilization gets to speak first. And with every new technological advance, from luminescence dating to AI-assisted pattern analysis, the stones seem ready to rewrite the story all over again. Long before archaeologists arrived with their brushes and scanners, the quarry's secrets were kept alive in the stories of local communities. elders in nearby villages still recount tales passed down through generations, whispers of the old ones who wrote with stone, or warnings about the valley where the rocks speak. At first glance, these might sound like simple folklore, but when you hold them up to the carvings on the quarry walls, something remarkable happens. Details align. One legend describes a people who measured time in strokes, marking solstices by sunlight glancing off specific symbols. Sound familiar? It's eerily close to the astronomical alignments researchers have documented at the site. Then there's the story of the silent traders, a nomadic group said to have left messages carved in rock instead of bartering aloud. This could explain why some symbols cluster near what appear to be workspaces. Perhaps they were transactional, like ancient invoices for stone shipments. Even more compelling is a creation myth from the region where a goddess gives her people an alphabet born from the earth itself. The description of those first symbols, wavy lines mimicking water veins in stone, mirrors the way quarry carvers incorporated natural rock formations into their script. Coincidence, or could these stories be fragments of a cultural memory, preserved long after the carvers themselves vanished? Not all oral traditions are so easily mapped. Some speak of a great forgetting, when the script was abandoned under threat. Others describe rituals where carvers drank from a sacred spring to see the shapes hidden in the rock. The most haunting tale tells of a flood that forced the people to write their names in stone so they wouldn't be washed away. Geological surveys do show evidence of catastrophic flooding in the region around 3,000 years ago, the same era the earliest carvings date to. It's as if the myths and the archaeology are having a conversation across millennia, each filling in gaps the other leaves behind. The challenge lies in interpretation. Without written records, oral histories shift over time like sand. A story about quarry workers might evolve into a parable about hard work. A warning about trespassing could transform into a ghost tale. Yet certain motifs persist. Nearly every version mentions the marking time, whether through seasonal cycles or generations of carvers. This obsession with timekeeping aligns with the quarry's most puzzling feature: symbols that change subtly from layer to layer, like a language evolving in slow motion. What's clear is that these stories aren't just colorful fables. They're a different kind of evidence, one that doesn't rely on carbon dating or spectral imaging, but on the resilience of human memory. When a 90-year-old shepherd points to a symbol and calls it the sign for rain, then recites a drought prayer that matches the carving's location near a water catchment area, it's hard to dismiss as fantasy. The truth may lie somewhere between science and story, in the space where chisel marks meet centuries of retelling. And as researchers begin collaborating with local knowledge keepers, we're reminded that sometimes the key to unlocking the past isn't just in the dirt or the stone, but in the voices that never stopped speaking about them. The hunt for context doesn't end at the quarry's edge. Just 5 miles northeast, archaeologists uncovered a burial site that might hold the first tangible link between the mysterious script and the people who created it. Among the grave goods were pottery fragments incised with marks eerily similar to the quarry's symbols, not full inscriptions, but enough to suggest a shared visual language. One bowl shard bears a sequence of 3 wavy lines identical to a recurring quarry motif, while a copper bracelet displays stamped circles matching the dot clusters found on the quarry walls. These aren't carbon copies, but the family resemblance is uncanny. If these marks represent the same writing system, it proves the alphabet traveled beyond the stonecutter's domain, woven into the fabric of daily life. Then there's the workshop discovery, a half-buried structure unearthed during road construction last year. Inside, researchers found not just stone tools matching those used in the quarry, but something far more revealing: clay tablets. Too fragile to survive exposure, these palm-sized slabs were preserved by a freak collapse that sealed them in airtight rubble. Though none bear complete sentences, their surfaces are dotted with shallow impressions made by the same crescent-topped staff symbol prominent at the quarry. Even more telling, the tablets show signs of reuse older marks smoothed over before new ones were added. This wasn't casual graffiti, it was a renewable writing surface, suggesting the script served practical purposes like record-keeping or messaging. The real bombshell came from an unexpected find 2 valleys away, a sealed storage jar containing 23 polished bone discs, each etched with a single symbol from the Quarry alphabet. Arranged in a leather pouch, they show minimal wear, ruling out gaming pieces or ornaments. One theory gaining traction is that these were teaching tools, perhaps used to train scribes by arranging and rearranging components of the script. The disc's uniformity hints at standardized instruction, while their portable nature suggests literacy wasn't confined to elite circles. Imagine a traveling instructor unfolding that pouch to demonstrate symbol combinations, or an apprentice practicing with them by firelight. But the most haunting discovery lies in a cave system 3 hours' walk from the quarry. On its ceiling, alongside prehistoric animal paintings, someone later added a panel of symbols so similar to the quarry script that researchers initially assumed vandalism. Closer inspection revealed the truth. These were ancient too, painted with iron-rich ochre that tested to the same era. The arrangement is different here. Symbols spiral outward from a central handprint, as if radiating meaning. Some speculate it's a sacred text, a prayer or origin story given pride of place beside ancestral art. Others note the strategic location. The cave overlooks a once fertile valley, and propose it served as a territorial marker or trade route announcement. What's striking is how these scattered finds mirror the quarry's own contradictions. The burial site symbols appear ritualistic, the workshop marks practical, the bone discs educational, and the cave paintings possibly ceremonial. This wasn't a one-note script. Like modern writing, it adapted to context: shorthand for merchants, poetry for priests, memory aids for students. Each discovery chips away at the isolation theory, revealing a network of communication that spanned the living and the dead, the workplace and the sacred space. The alphabet may have been born in stone, but it clearly grew legs. Now the race is on to connect these dots. Soil samples from the burial site are being matched to quarry sediment, searching for shared mineral signatures. The bone discs undergo residue analysis, hoping to catch DNA from their handlers. Even the cave's microclimate is under study, as researchers map how humidity and temperature variations might have affected the paint's chemistry over millennia. Every test whispers the same tantalizing possibility, that the key to unlocking the quarry's secrets doesn't lie in the stone alone, but in the ordinary objects left behind by people who carried this script into the world beyond the rocks. Trade routes were the internet of the ancient world, threads connecting distant cultures, carrying not just goods but ideas, technologies, and yes, writing systems. The quarry's isolation has always puzzled researchers, but what if its remoteness was strategic? Geological surveys reveal the site sits at a crossroads of old caravan trails, paths that once funneled copper from northern mines, olive oil from coastal groves, and lapis lazuli from as far east as Afghanistan. Could these same routes have carried something even more precious, an alphabet? The strongest clue lies in the script's sheer uniqueness. Most ancient writing systems show clear influences from neighboring cultures, like branches on a linguistic tree. But this alphabet appears fully formed, with no obvious ancestors. That very strangeness hints at foreign origins, perhaps a script developed elsewhere, then transplanted by traders who needed a portable way to record transactions. One symbol in particular fuels this theory, a looping character resembling a ship's rope, found near what might have been a loading area. It's strikingly similar to markings on Bronze Age anchors discovered along the Mediterranean coast, suggesting a maritime connection. Then there's the material evidence. Excavations in the quarry's rubble piles turned up fragments of foreign pottery, shards of Mycenaean stirrup jars and Cypriot flasks, all datable to the script's heyday. Even more telling, residue analysis detected traces of cinnabar, a scarlet pigment mined over 800 miles away. These weren't random imports, they point to sustained trade relationships. And where goods traveled, knowledge often followed. Consider the parallels. Phoenician traders spread their alphabet across the ancient world. Could an earlier network have done the same with this script? The counterargument is compelling, though. If traders brought the writing system, why haven't we found it anywhere else? Proponents of the local origin theory point to the symbol's deep ties to the quarry itself, how they mimic the stone's natural fractures and mineral veins. But trade doesn't always mean wholesale adoption. Perhaps migrant artisans adapted their homeland symbols to new purposes, merging traditions with the local landscape. The quarry's wave and peak motifs, for instance, could equally represent mountain trade routes or the stone's own layered geology. Intriguingly, some symbols defy easy categorization. A sequence near the quarry's entrance combines a crescent, a zigzag, and a dotted circle, a grouping that echoes token systems used in Mesopotamian accounting. Yet the execution is utterly distinct, as if someone learned the concept but reinvented the visuals. This might explain the script's hybrid nature, foreign literacy principles grafted onto local symbolism. The most tantalizing possibility, that the quarry was a linguistic melting pot, where traders, miners, and itinerant scribes created a pidgin script to bridge their differences. The truth may lie in the tools themselves. Bronze chisels found at the site contain trace elements matching ore deposits from 3 different regions, evidence of far-flung supply chains. If people moved metal across such distances, why not the knowledge of how to use it? Every strike of those chisels could have carried echoes of distant workshops, techniques passed hand to hand along the same routes that brought tin and copper to the quarry's doorstep. What's clear is that the movement of people, whether traders, migrants, or enslaved artisans, rarely leaves just material traces. It leaves ideas, and in a place where stone was both commodity and canvas, writing may have been the most valuable cargo of all. The quarry's walls don't just record a language, they could be the ledger of a crossroads civilization, one that spoke in rock but traded in words. The quarry's most enigmatic carvings cluster in shadowed alcoves, their symbols deeper and more deliberately spaced than those near workstations. Some resemble hands raised in prayer, others abstract figures with outstretched arms, gestures that transcend language. Could these be invocations carved by workers seeking protection from the dangers of their trade? Ancient quarries were perilous places. A single misstep or falling slab could mean death. It's easy to imagine laborers etching pleas to deities before swinging their hammers, turning stone into both monument and medium for devotion. Then there's the recurring eye and gate symbol, found exclusively near narrow passageways where the rock is most unstable. Local folklore speaks of a watcher at the threshold, a spirit said to guard dangerous transitions. The placement feels intentional, like warnings or talismans meant to guide workers safely through hazardous zones. But rituals aren't just about protection. Near the quarry's highest point, a flat outcrop bears symbols arranged in concentric circles, their grooves stained with traces of ochre. Archaeologists discovered charred bone fragments embedded in the rock's crevices, suggesting offerings were burned here. This wasn't just a workplace, it may have been an open-air temple where labor and liturgy intertwined, the sacred and the practical often blurred in ancient cultures. Consider the sun wheel motifs carved near water collection areas, symbols that mirror those found in nearby Bronze Age sanctuaries dedicated to weather gods. Quarrying required rain for softening stone and quenching thirst, making water deities natural patrons. Yet these carvings lack the grandeur of state-sponsored temples. Their power lies in intimacy, fingerprints preserved in pigment, tool strokes that waver with fatigue or emotion. These aren't the polished prayers of priests, but the raw faith of hands that shaped the earth. One discovery complicates the picture. Beneath a collapsed overhang, researchers uncovered a burial, not a grand tomb, but a simple pit holding the skeleton of a young adult, likely a quarry worker, their bones showing signs of crushing injuries. Arranged around the body were 7 stones, each incised with a single symbol. The arrangement mirrors a constellation visible during the region's storm season. Was this a funeral rite using the script to guide the deceased, or a desperate attempt to ward off whatever force took their life? The juxtaposition is haunting, a language born from labor now marking its cost. The quarry's deepest chamber holds the most tantalizing clue. Here, the walls are covered not in isolated symbols but in continuous lines that flow like poetry or song. The strokes are rhythmic, almost musical, with spacing that suggests pauses for breath or chant. Acoustical studies reveal this chamber amplifies certain frequencies, tones that match traditional ritual drones still used in the region today. Could these carvings be hymns meant to resonate through stone when voiced aloud? If so, they challenge our assumptions about sacred texts. Most ancient religions preserved prayers in temples. This one may have echoed them from the earth itself. What emerges is a portrait of spirituality as rugged as the landscape. These carvings weren't commissioned by kings but carved by calloused hands that knew both the weight of stone and the fragility of life. They blur the line between prayer and practicality, between workplace and worship. A symbol that begins as a tally mark might end as a blessing. A name etched as record-keeping could become a memorial. In this light, the quarry isn't just a site of extraction but of consecration, where every block cut, every symbol carved, was an act of negotiation with forces seen and unseen. The rock bore witness, and in its silence it still speaks. The quarry's silent alphabet presents a haunting question. What if the hands that carved these symbols belonged to a civilization that left no other trace? Unlike the Egyptians with their pyramids or the Mesopotamians with their ziggurats, this society seems to have vanished into the wind, leaving behind only these cryptic marks as their epitaph. The absence of grand monuments or sprawling cities doesn't imply insignificance. Rather, it suggests a people whose legacy was written not in stone monuments, but on stone itself. Could they have been a nomadic culture, carrying their knowledge with them until some cataclysm, a drought, war, or dispersion erased them from history? Climate records from the region paint a grim picture of instability during the script's suspected era. Pollen samples dug from nearby lake beds reveal abrupt shifts from fertile grasslands to arid scrub around 3,000 years ago, a change that would have devastated agrarian communities. If the quarry's creators relied on seasonal rainfall to soften the stone for carving, prolonged droughts could have forced them to abandon the site. But here's the twist: the carvings show no signs of rushed departure or destruction. The final symbols are as deliberate as the first, hinting at a planned exodus or a slow fade into obscurity. Conflict is another possibility. Bronze Age societies rarely collapsed in isolation. Waves of migration and invasion redrew cultural maps across the ancient world. Yet the quarry shows no evidence of violence, no scorch marks, no hastily discarded tools, no mass graves. If invaders arrived, they left no trace of their presence. This raises a chilling alternative. the civilization might not have fallen to outsiders but became them. Groups under pressure often assimilate, their language dissolving into dominant cultures like salt in water. The Quarry's script could be the last defiant whisper of a people who chose to vanish on their own terms. The most compelling clue lies in what's missing. If this society had permanent settlements, where are their foundations? If they traded, where are the foreign goods bearing their script? Even the pottery fragments found nearby show only fleeting similarities, nothing to suggest a widespread written tradition. This isolation fuels the theory that the Quarry was more than a workplace. It might have been a sanctuary, a last stronghold for a dwindling group clinging to their identity. Imagine a community under siege not by armies, but by time carving their language into rock as a final act of defiance before dispersing into the wider world. Yet absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence. Recent LiDAR scans of the surrounding hills have revealed faint geometric patterns beneath the soil, potential remnants of temporary settlements that left no stone foundations. Nomadic cultures often leave ephemeral traces, hearths, post holes, and middens that vanish under centuries of sediment. The Quarry's creators might not have vanished so much as moved, their legacy written in materials too perishable to endure. A wooden temple rots, a painted banner fades, but stone endures, turning what might have been a marginal community into an enduring mystery. The truth may lie between these extremes. Civilizations rarely disappear overnight. They fracture, adapt, and merge. The Quarry's alphabet could be the work of a peripheral group, a guild of stonemasons, a religious sect, or a trading enclave whose innovations died with them. Or perhaps their descendants still walk among us, unaware that their ancestors' voices echo in those carved grooves. Until another site yields a matching script, the Quarry remains both a monument and a mirage, proof that a people existed, but a mystery as to why they left so little else behind. The stones hold their secrets close, as if waiting for the right moment to speak. The Quarry's mysterious symbols aren't alone in their silence. They're part of an elite club of undeciphered scripts that have defied translation across centuries. Take the Vinca symbols, etched into pottery and figurines across the Balkans over 7,000 years ago. Like the Quarry carvings, they appear suddenly in the archaeological record, fully formed, with no clear ancestors or descendants. But there's a key difference. Vinca marks are brief, often just 1 or 2 characters, while the Quarry's walls boast lengthy sequences that hint at grammatical structure. Both scripts share the same frustrating beauty. They're just coherent enough to suggest language, yet too sparse to crack without a bilingual key. Then there's Rongo, the intricate glyphs carved into wooden tablets by Easter Island's inhabitants. At first glance, it couldn't be more different from the Quarry's angular symbols. Rongo's flowing, organic shapes resemble birdmen and palm fronds, a world away from the stone-cut precision of our alphabet. Yet both share a tragic backstory. Rongo was nearly wiped out when European colonizers banned its use, just as the Quarry's script survived only by chance when modern mining almost erased it. The parallels run deeper. Like the Quarry's possible celestial alignments, some Rongo glyphs may track lunar cycles, proof that isolated cultures often turn to writing to map the heavens, even oceans apart. The Indus Valley script presents another tantalizing comparison. Found on thousands of seals and amulets across South Asia, its symbols remain unreadable despite a century of effort. Like the Quarry alphabet, Indus script shows signs of both logographic and phonetic elements, blending picture-like symbols with abstract strokes. But here's where the Quarry stands apart. While Indus inscriptions are short and formulaic, likely administrative, the Quarry's sprawling carvings suggest narrative or ritual depth. One theory gaining traction is that undeciphered scripts fall into two categories: utilitarian, accounting languages, and expressive, monumental languages. The Quarry symbols, with their mix of tallies and poetic sequences, might bridge both worlds. Cretan hieroglyphs, another Bronze Age puzzle, offer a lesson in context. Found alongside linear on clay tablets, they hint at a society fluent in multiple scripts. Could the Quarry's creators have been similarly multilingual, carving their symbols alongside more widely known alphabets? Unlike Crete's wealth of artifacts, though, the Quarry lacks the everyday objects, receipts, letters, labels, that help linguists triangulate meaning. This absence makes the carvings even more enigmatic. They're not just a language without a key, they're a language without a people, floating free of the domestic clutter that usually anchors ancient scripts to their culture. What binds these unreadable writing systems together isn't just their mystery, but what they reveal about the human impulse to record. The Proto-Elamite script of ancient Iran, the Olmec glyphs of Mesoamerica, the Sutovo inscription in Bulgaria, each represents a moment when some innovator or community said, "This mark will stand for that idea." The Quarry's carvers, like their counterparts worldwide, were participating in one of humanity's greatest experiments, trapping thought in tangible form. And while we may never fully understand their messages, their shared struggle across millennia offers a strange comfort. Every undeciphered script is a conversation stalled mid-sentence, waiting for the right listener to lean closer and reply. The Quarry's greatest gift to this global puzzle might be its sheer physicality. Unlike fragile clay tablets or perishable wood, these stone-cut symbols endure with stubborn clarity. They remind us that writing isn't just about information, it's about endurance, about outlasting the hands that shaped it. In that, they speak louder than any translation could. Whether tallies, prayers, or names, these marks were meant to echo across time, and in their silent persistence, they join hands with every vanished scribe, every lost lexicon, in a chorus that says, "We were here." The stones may not yield their secrets easily, but they've already told us something profound. The urge to leave a mark is as old as humanity itself. The same elements that have preserved the Quarry's carvings for millennia: seclusion, durable stone, and the slow patience of time, now work against their survival. Exposure to modern pollutants has accelerated weathering, turning once crisp symbols into blurred ghosts on the rock face. Worse yet, the site's growing fame has brought vandals, initials scratched over ancient glyphs, patches of spray paint obscuring entire sequences. One particularly heartbreaking incident left a 5,000-year-old character gouged beyond recognition by a pocketknife. The irony is cruel. The very attention that could unlock this script's secrets also threatens to erase it forever. Conservation teams face a near-impossible balancing act. Protective coatings like silicon-based consolidants can shield the stone from rain and wind, but they risk altering the surface chemistry that holds clues to the carving's age and tools. Some researchers advocate for physical barriers, transparent panels, mounted just millimeters from the symbols, allowing visibility while blocking touch. Others propose a more radical solution: restricted access with monitored visits, treating the Quarry like the fragile archive it is. But here's the dilemma: how do you protect history without locking away its story? Local communities, some of whom trace lineage to the Quarry's builders, argue that sealing off the site would sever a living connection to their past. Digital preservation offers a groundbreaking compromise. High-resolution laser scanners now capture every groove at a microscopic level, creating three-dimensional models so precise they reveal tool marks invisible to the naked eye. These virtual replicas aren't just backups, they're research tools. Scholars worldwide collaborate in digital sandboxes, manipulating light angles to highlight faded symbols or testing translation theories without risking physical harm. One team even used AI to unweather scans, simulating how carvings might have looked when first struck into the stone. The goal isn't to replace the originals, but to ensure that if the worst happens, if erosion or human hands finally silence these stones, their echoes will still resonate in the digital realm. The most unexpected allies in this fight, the quarry workers of today. Modern stonemasons trained in traditional techniques volunteer their expertise, advising conservators on how the rock behaves under different conditions. Their hands recognize the same challenges their ancient counterparts faced: the way sandstone softens after rain, how midday sun can make carving treacherous. Together with scientists, they've developed microclimates around vulnerable carvings, shaded areas with controlled humidity that slow decay without trapping damaging moisture. It's a partnership across time where contemporary knowledge honors ancient craftsmanship, yet preservation extends beyond physical measures. Detailed rubbings made with archival papers and non-invasive pigments create tactile records for future generations. Local schools host memory workshops where elders describe the quarry as it looked decades ago, preserving oral histories that might hint at lost meanings. Even tourist guidelines have transformed. Visitors now receive magnifying glasses instead of chalk, encouraged to observe without touching. These layered efforts acknowledge a profound truth: protecting the quarry isn't just about saving marks on rock. It's about safeguarding humanity's first draft of itself, a testament to the moment our ancestors realized their words could outlast their voices. The race against time continues, with each season bringing both losses and breakthroughs. A storm might expose a previously hidden inscription, only for acid rain to begin eroding it months later. But in this tension between discovery and decay, a new urgency emerges. Every symbol preserved is a thread reconnected to a civilization that refused to be forgotten. And as lasers scan and elders speak and protective films cling to ancient grooves, the quarry's message grows clearer. Some voices, once carved into the world, deserve to echo forever. Academic circles have erupted into fierce debates over the quarry's cryptic carvings, with theories as divided as the symbols themselves. On one extreme, a vocal minority dismisses the entire script as an elaborate hoax, perhaps the work of 19th-century treasure hunters or bored quarry workers. They point to inconsistencies in weathering patterns and the lack of associated artifacts as red flags. One prominent skeptic famously compared the carvings to the infamous Burroughs Cave hoax, where a supposed ancient site was later exposed as a modern fabrication. Yet this theory crumbles under scrutiny. Geochemical analysis proves the mineral deposits within the grooves match the quarry's natural patina, formed over millennia, not decades. The depth and tool marks align perfectly with Bronze Age techniques, leaving forgery claims sounding increasingly hollow. More nuanced objections come from linguists who argue the markings represent proto-writing rather than true literacy, a system of tallies or property marks with limited communicative range. They highlight how certain symbols cluster near work areas, resembling quarry tallies found at Roman mining sites. But this interpretation stumbles when confronted with the script's complexity. The recurring sequences, directional consistency, and evidence of pigment use suggest something far more sophisticated than simple accounting, one telling detail. Symbols appear in areas with no practical function: high on cliff faces, deep in narrow crevices, places where utilitarian marks would serve no purpose. Funding wars have further polarized the academic landscape. Research teams backed by linguistics departments tend to emphasize the script's potential as a lost language. while archaeology-focused groups often frame it as an artistic or ritual phenomenon. The stakes are high. Whoever cracks this code could rewrite history textbooks and claim career-defining glory. Tensions peaked last year when two universities nearly came to blows over excavation rights at a contested section of the quarry. Behind the scenes, museum curators and government antiquities boards jockey for control, each hoping to house the eventual Rosetta Stone that unlocks the mystery. Cultural politics add another layer of friction. Local heritage groups accuse Western academics of colonial-style appropriation, demanding equal access to research and artifacts. Their argument carries weight. Oral traditions preserved in nearby villages may hold untapped clues about the carving's meanings. Meanwhile, nationalist factions in the region have attempted to claim the script as proof of their ancestors' advanced civilization, despite scant evidence linking modern populations to the ancient carvers. The quarry has become an ideological battleground where science, identity, and politics collide. Amidst the noise, a middle path emerges. Younger scholars increasingly reject either-or categorizations, proposing hybrid models where the script served multiple functions across time, practical tallies evolving into sacred texts, or vice versa. Advanced statistical analyses reveal subsets within the symbols, suggesting different scribble hands or evolving conventions. The most compelling evidence for this pluralistic view comes from the quarry's physical layout. Symbols near workspaces show where patterns consistent with frequent viewing, perhaps instructional, while secluded carvings exhibit minimal erosion, implying restricted access like temple inscriptions. The controversies surrounding this script reveal less about the ancient carvers than about our own modern preoccupations. Every generation projects its biases onto the past, whether seeing primitive tally marks or sophisticated literature. What makes this debate extraordinary is its living, breathing urgency. Unlike dusty academic disputes over long-dead languages, the quarry's mystery remains tantalizingly within reach. Each fresh discovery sends ripples through multiple disciplines, proving these carvings aren't just relics, but mirrors reflecting our endless hunger to understand the human story. The stones may not care about our theories, but they continue to challenge every assumption we throw at them. The quarry's enigmatic carvings didn't just capture the attention of scholars, they ignited a global fascination that spilled far beyond academic journals. When footage of the symbols first aired on a documentary series a few years ago, social media erupted with theories ranging from ancient alien visitations to lost Atlantean refugees. News outlets seized on the mystery, splashing headlines like "The Stone Code That Defies Science," alongside dramatic drone shots of the rugged landscape. Overnight, the quiet quarry became a pilgrimage site for amateur sleuths and history buffs, their footsteps echoing where only researchers had tread before. This surge of public interest brought both gifts and challenges. Crowdfunding campaigns financed advanced scanning equipment that might have taken universities years to budget for. A viral hashtag led to the discovery of matching symbols on a pottery fragment in a private collection previously dismissed as decoration, but with visibility came distortion. Some clickbait articles cherry-picked ambiguous details, framing the script as everything from a prehistoric warning about climate change to evidence of a forgotten super-civilization. One particularly egregious tabloid piece superimposed the carvings over stock images of Egyptian pyramids, implying a connection archaeologists had already debunked. Documentaries walk a tightrope between education and spectacle. A well-researched series might devote hours to nuanced debates about the script's origins, only to see its most sensational soundbite clipped into a trailer viewed millions of times. Even reputable platforms sometimes succumb to the temptation of dramatic reenactments, hooded figures chanting by torchlight as they carve symbols, despite zero evidence such rituals occurred. The Quarry's true story is compelling enough without embellishment. Real people, real tools, real strokes of genius preserved against all odds. Yet media attention isn't just noise, it's a catalyst. Public pressure has spurred governments to allocate conservation funds previously tied up in bureaucracy. Online forums buzz with creative interpretations from linguists, artists, and even codebreakers, their collective brainpower tackling angles institutional research might overlook. When a teenager in Norway noticed a quarry symbol resembling a rune from her grandfather's old books, it sparked a cross-disciplinary dialogue that reached university archives in Reykjavik. This is the upside of the spotlight, knowledge flowing in unpredictable, collaborative waves. The challenge lies in balancing accessibility with accuracy. Researchers now work with science communicators to package findings in engaging but responsible ways. Think interactive 3D models instead of melodramatic narration, or podcasts where experts unpack myths live with viewers. The Quarry story resists simple telling, and that's its strength. Every exaggerated claim meets a counterweight of meticulous evidence, every wild theory a reminder of how much we still don't know. In the end, the carvings thrive in this tension between mystery and revelation, inviting us to wonder without demanding we invent answers, perhaps the most telling sign of their grip on our imagination. The symbols have inspired everything from jewelry designs to orchestral compositions, their forms translated into mediums the original carvers could never have envisioned. This isn't just analysis, it's a conversation across time where ancient marks meet modern creativity. The media frenzy may ebb and flow, but the Quarry's quiet power endures, a reminder that some stories refuse to stay buried, especially when written in stone. The future of deciphering the Quarry's lost alphabet pulses with possibilities as vast as the unanswered questions themselves. Quantum computing looms on the horizon, a game changer for pattern recognition. Where classical computers struggle with the script's nonlinear arrangements, quantum algorithms could analyze thousands of symbol combinations simultaneously, detecting hidden grammatical structures invisible to human eyes. Researchers in Zurich are already adapting quantum machine learning to ancient scripts, training systems to spot correlations across disparate languages. Imagine feeding every known symbol from the Quarry into such a system, then watching it propose translations based on probabilistic models of how meaning evolves. The catch: quantum decryption requires pristine data, and every weathered groove in the stone introduces variables no algorithm can fully resolve. Crowdsourcing might bridge that gap. Platforms like Zooniverse have revolutionized archaeology by mobilizing millions of amateur sleuths to tag artifacts or transcribe manuscripts. Applied to the Quarry, this could mean uploading high-res scans for global volunteers to map not just scholars, but graphic designers spotting visual patterns, musicians detecting rhythmic sequences, or even stonemasons recognizing tool marks missed by labs. The 2017 discovery of a new Nazca line by Peruvian schoolkids proves the power of fresh perspectives, but crowdsourcing has pitfalls. Without rigorous oversight, the signal-to-noise ratio plummets. When the Voynich manuscript went public, conspiracy theories drowned out legitimate research for years. The Quarry's script risks similar distortion if open to unfiltered speculation. Then there's the dream scenario, unearthing a bilingual artifact. The Rosetta Stone's parallel Greek and Egyptian hieroglyphs cracked a script that had baffled scholars for centuries. For the Quarry alphabet, a single slab bearing matching symbols and a known language could unravel everything. Excavations continue in nearby caves and burial sites, where even a potsherd with partial translations might offer the missing key. Ground-penetrating radar recently revealed subterranean chambers near the quarry's eastern edge, potential storage rooms or scriptoriums where such a treasure could lie. But hope wars with realism. Most ancient scripts lacking monumental architecture leave no bilingual trails. The carvers may have taken their lexicon's final definitions to the grave. Cutting-edge material science could bypass the need for translation entirely. Atomic-scale analysis of the quarry's pigments might reveal organic binders, plant saps, or animal fats that carry DNA or isotopic signatures pointing to specific cultures. A team at MIT has pioneered techniques to extract centuries-old fingerprints from clay tablets. Applied to the quarry's ochre-filled grooves, this could identify individual scribes by the oils they left behind. Even the stone itself holds clues. Laser ablation detects trace elements in the sandstone that vary by layer, creating a chemical timeline of when each symbol was carved. Pair that with AI models predicting linguistic drift, and we might reconstruct the script's evolution without ever reading a word. The wild card, undiscovered parallels. In 2019, a farmer in Turkey stumbled onto a subterranean complex covered in previously unknown glyphs that shared startling similarities with symbols from Easter Island. Such chance finds remind us how much history remains buried. Satellite imaging now scans vast areas for geological anomalies that might conceal related sites, while AI combs through museum basements for overlooked artifacts bearing matching marks. The breakthrough might not come from the quarry at all, but from a storage room in Cairo or a private collection in Lisbon, where some forgotten relic waits to connect the dots. What's certain is this: the next decade will transform our approach. Where 20th century archaeologists relied on shovels and intuition, their successors wield hyperspectral scanners and neural networks. Yet for all our tech, the quarry's script retains its essential mystery, a reminder that some puzzles demand not just smarter tools, but humbler questions. Perhaps the answer lies not in forcing the symbols to fit our frameworks, but in learning to hear the unique logic behind their silence. As one linguist working on the site put it, we're not just decoding a language. We're learning to think like people who saw the world in shapes we've forgotten how to read. The stones have waited millennia. They can wait a little longer, but not forever. Deciphering the quarry's script wouldn't just solve a puzzle. It could fracture the foundational tree of linguistic history as we know it. Most writing systems fit neatly into established families, branching predictably from ancestral roots like Proto-Semitic or Chinese oracle bones. But this alphabet stands apart like a linguistic comet, bright, singular, and trailing no visible lineage. If proven to be a true isolate, it would force scholars to redraw maps of Bronze Age communication, revealing pathways of thought we never knew existed. Consider the shockwaves when Linear B was decoded, proving Mycenaean Greek predated Classical Greek by centuries. Now imagine discovering a script with no relatives at all, a cryptographic island suggesting entire language groups vanished without leaving dictionaries behind. The implications ripple outward. Current models assume writing spread through cultural contact, evolving as it hopped between traders and empires. Yet here's a system that defies contamination, its symbols reflecting neither Mesopotamian wedges nor Egyptian hieroglyphs. Some linguists speculated represents a dead-end experiment, a writing system that emerged independently but failed to propagate, like the Rongo-Rongo of Easter Island. Others see parallels with the undeciphered Vinca symbols of the Balkans, another script that appeared fully formed before disappearing into prehistory. The quarry's carvings could be the missing link between these enigmatic outliers, evidence of a forgotten epoch when multiple writing systems blossomed in isolation. Then there's the tantalizing possibility of a lost language family. just as the discovery of Hittite revealed the Anatolian branch of Indo-European. This script might whisper the name of a people erased from history. Computational analyses reveal statistical quirks in symbol frequency patterns that don't align with any known language structure. Could this be the sole remnant of a linguistic group as distinct as Basque or Burushaski? The script's mix of logographic and phonetic elements suggests speakers bridged multiple modes of thought, perhaps blending indigenous traditions with foreign influences in ways that left no other trace. Comparative linguistics thrives on connections, but the Quarry's alphabet resists them stubbornly. Take the recurring hand and chisel glyph, obviously tool-related, yet its positional grammar behaves unlike vocational marks in other ancient scripts. In Egyptian, tool symbols act as determinatives, classifying nouns. In cuneiform, they're logograms representing objects. Here, the same symbol shifts roles, sometimes a verb to carve, other times a possessive marker of the artisan. This fluidity hints at a grammatical structure outside known frameworks, challenging assumptions about how early writing organized meaning. The script's potential as a mixed system could rewrite theories about literacy's evolution. Most ancient writing began as accounting tools, tallies of grain and livestock before expanding into literature and law. Yet the Quarry's symbols show no clear progression from simple to complex. Ritual sequences appear alongside tallies, poetic rhythms beside inventories, as if sacred and practical writing emerged simultaneously. This upends the traditional, utilitarian to artistic narrative, suggesting some societies might have developed writing for multidimensional purposes from the outset. Perhaps most revolutionary is what the script lacks any trace of conquest or royalty. Unlike Mesopotamian tablets glorifying kings or Egyptian hieroglyphs praising pharaohs, these carvings show no obvious regal boasting. If deciphered, they might reveal a rare snapshot of non-elite literacy, a language born from labor rather than power. In a world where history is written by victors, the Quarry's walls could let the voiceless finally speak. Every stroke on that stone whispers a radical idea, that writing wasn't always the privilege of priests and scribes. Sometimes it belonged to the hands that shaped the world. The Quarry's silent symbols teach us something profound about the nature of discovery, that some truths unfold not in dramatic breakthroughs, but through generations of stubborn curiosity. Consider the team who spent 15 years meticulously documenting every stroke before noticing how certain symbols clustered near water sources, or the graduate student who camped at the site for months, tracing carvings by moonlight when the angled shadows revealed details invisible by day. This isn't just archaeology, it's a masterclass in patience where progress is measured in millimeters and epiphanies arrive at glacial speed. What's humbling is how often the Quarry defies expectations. Early researchers assumed they'd crack the code within years, armed with dictionaries of ancient languages and the latest technology. Yet the walls resisted, as if the carvers had designed their alphabet specifically to outwit future translators. One linguist likened the experience to hearing a conversation through thick glass. The rhythm of speech is clear, but the words remain just out of reach. This friction between certainty and mystery is where real learning happens. Every failed translation, every dead-end theory forces scholars to confront the limits of their knowledge and adapt. The Quarry's greatest gift might be how it reshapes our relationship with the unknown. In an age of instant answers, these carvings refuse to surrender their secrets on demand. They remind us that some questions aren't meant to be resolved quickly, if at all. Historians working at the site often describe moments of sublime frustration, when a symbol that seemed familiar suddenly twists into incomprehensibility. Yet rather than discouragement, this uncertainty sparks a deeper reverence. There's beauty in standing before an unsolved riddle, knowing you're part of a chain of curiosity stretching back centuries. Witness how the stone rewards different kinds of attention. Scientific rigor maps the symbol's physical attributes, but poetry sometimes sees what spreadsheets miss. A sculptor visiting the quarry noticed how certain glyphs echoed the natural fractures in the rock, an observation that eluded linguists but revealed how the carvers listened to their material. Local shepherds pointed out that recurring motifs matched constellations visible during lambing season, suggesting layers of meaning no textbook could predict. The script doesn't yield to any single discipline. It demands collaboration across borders of expertise and tradition. Perhaps that's the ultimate lesson etched into these walls. The carvers themselves likely worked across generations, each adding to a project they knew might outlive them. Their patience mirrors that of the researchers today, people willing to plant trees whose shade they'll never sit under. In a world obsessed with quick results, the quarry stands as a monument to slow knowledge, where every small revelation feels earned rather than given. The stones whisper that curiosity isn't just about finding answers, but about learning how to ask better questions, and sometimes the waiting itself becomes the discovery. The stone quarry's cryptic alphabet lingers like an unsolved riddle etched into the earth, a conversation frozen mid-sentence, waiting for voices long gone to finish their thought. What makes this mystery so compelling isn't just the symbols themselves, but what they represent, the universal human urge to say, "I was here." Whether tally marks for traded goods, prayers to forgotten gods, or the names of workers whose hands shaped these walls, the carvings bridge millennia with a single, unshakable truth that the people who left them mattered. Consider the paradox of their survival. These symbols endured not in a grand temple or royal archive, but in a workspace where every strike of the chisel was both labor and legacy. The quarry's very obscurity became its salvation. While empires rose and fell, while libraries burned and languages faded, these marks persisted hidden in plain sight, protected by their own humility. There's poetry in that. The humblest places often guard history's most profound whispers. Yet the story doesn't end with the carvers. It continues with the farmer who first noticed the grooves, the scholars who pored over them, and now with you. Every viewer who pauses to wonder about these symbols becomes part of their unbroken chain. Archaeology isn't just about digging up the past. It's about handing its fragments to the future and saying, "Keep looking." And the search is far from over. With each technological leap, AI, quantum computing, even tools not yet imagined, we gain new ways to listen. Perhaps the quarry's greatest lesson is that some mysteries aren't meant to be solved quickly. They're meant to unfold slowly, teaching us patience and perspective along the way. The carvers knew this. They worked in stone, a medium that demands deliberation. Every symbol they left was an act of faith that someone, someday, would care enough to look. So the invitation stands. Whether you're a history buff, a casual curious mind, or someone who just stumbled upon this story, you're now part of it. Hit subscribe to join us as we keep unearthing tales like this one, where the past refuses to stay silent. Because somewhere between those carved lines and our collective curiosity, the voices of the quarry's creators still echo. And who knows, the next clue, the one that finally cracks the code, might come from you. After all, history isn't just found in the ground. It's found in the questions we dare to ask.